The year is 1177 BC. In the port city of Ugarit, on the coast of what is now Syria, a baker pulls flatbread from a clay oven. A merchant counts tin ingots on a stone quay. A scribe presses a stylus into wet clay. 1,200 workers are building a palace extension that will never be finished. Ugarit is not a village. It is a global city. Ships from Cyprus unload copper. Ships from Egypt carry grain. Ships from the Aegean bring pottery painted with octopuses and spirals. The harbour smells of cedar resin, salted fish, and wine. Then, nothing. Not slowly, not gradually, not the way Rome fell over centuries. Within a single generation, almost every city in the eastern Mediterranean, Mycenae, Tiryns, Hattusa, Megiddo, Ugarit, Enkomi, Lachish, goes dark. Palaces burn, writing systems vanish. Long-distance trade collapses entirely. A world of 1 million people, interlocked across thousands of miles, simply stops. This is not a video about mysterious invaders who destroyed civilization. This is a video about the world they destroyed, who lived there, what they built together, and why it could never be rebuilt. Using AI reconstruction, we went back to 1200 BC and rebuilt the Eastern Mediterranean at its peak, its ports, its palaces, its trade routes, its ordinary people. Every frame is based on excavation reports from Ugarit, the Amarna letters, the linear B tablets at Pylos, and Eric Cline's landmark study, 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed. What you are about to see will change how you think about fragility. Stand at the harbour of Ugarit in 1200 BC and count the flags. Egyptian, Mycenaean, Cypriot, Hittite, Canaanite, Assyrian. They are all here, not because Ugarit conquered them, because Ugarit needed them, and they needed Ugarit back. This is the Bronze Age's great secret. It is not an age of isolated empires. It is an age of interdependence so deep it would make a modern economist nervous. Bronze, the metal that makes every weapon, every plough, every ship fitting of this era, requires two ingredients that almost never occur in the same place: copper and tin. The copper comes mostly from Cyprus. The tin comes from mines in Afghanistan, thousands of miles away. Neither is useful without the other. Neither reaches the craftsman without the merchant. This is a world held together not by conquest, but by supply chains. Archaeologist Eric Cline calls it the world's first globalized economy. He is not exaggerating. A cargo ship wrecked off the coast of Turkey in 1300 BC. The Uluburun shipwreck, excavated in the 1980s, carried 10 tons of copper ingots, 1 ton of tin, Canaanite wine jars, Cypriot pottery, Egyptian gold jewelry, Syrian ivory, and Baltic amber. 1 ship, 1 voyage, 7 civilizations aboard. And this is the world that is about to disappear. But before we watch it fall, we need to live inside it, because you cannot mourn something you do not love. Her name is lost. We know she exists because of her rations. Linear B tablets at the Palace of Pylos in Greece record the names and daily bread allocations of hundreds of working women, weavers, grinders, bath attendants, employed directly by the palace. She gets 2 units of wheat per day. Her daughter gets 1. She is not a queen. She is not a priestess. She is a textile worker in the most sophisticated manufacturing complex of the ancient world. The Mycenaean palaces of Greece are not just centers of power, they are factories. Pylos alone employs over 400 women in its textile workshops, producing wool cloth at industrial scale for export across the Mediterranean. The women spin, they weave, they dye. They meet quotas recorded in obsessively detailed palace accounts. In Ugarit, a merchant named Yabninu writes to a trading partner in Cyprus. He complains, not about war, not about drought, but about a late shipment. "My brother, the ships you promised have not arrived. My customers are asking questions." The letter survives in the Ugarit archive. It reads like an email. A child in Hattusa, capital of the Hittite Empire in central Anatolia, draws on a potsherd, not a sacred symbol, not a royal inscription, a drawing of a bull with round, friendly eyes. The potsherd sits in a museum in Ankara. These are the people of the Bronze Age. Not abstractions, not statistics, bread, letters. A child's drawing of a bull. The world they inhabit is richer, more connected, more human than almost any textbook has ever made it sound. And it is a world that has been quietly accumulating cracks for 30 years. Look at the map, not a modern map, a Bronze Age map, drawn not in lines but in sea routes, river valleys and mountain passes. From the tin mines of Afghanistan, caravans carry ingots west to Mesopotamia. From Mesopotamia, the tin flows down the Euphrates to the Syrian coast. From the Syrian coast, ships carry it to Cyprus, where smelters combine it with Cypriot copper into bronze ingots. The distinctive oxhide shape, 4 handles, 1 per corner, standardized across the entire Mediterranean world. From Cyprus, ships scatter in every direction, north to the Aegean, west to Crete, south to Egypt, east back to the Levantine ports. The scale is staggering. Egypt, under Ramesses II, is producing thousands of bronze weapons, farming tools, and temple fittings per year. Every ingot of tin in every one of them began its journey over 3,000 miles away. Every ship that carried it was built with cedar from Lebanon, roped with flax from Egypt, crewed by sailors whose home ports were spread across 6 different cultures. At Mycenae, the walled citadel of ancient Greece, the palace treasury holds gold from Nubia, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, ivory from Syria, and amber from the Baltic coast, not as curiosities, as raw materials, actively worked by craftsmen employed in the palace workshops. We look at Bronze Age ruins and see primitive. We should see integrated. This is a network with no redundancies, no backup routes, no safety margins. Remove one link, one supply of tin, one stable port, one reliable harvest, and the tension transmits instantly to every node. In 1200 BC, the network is running at full capacity. It is also running at maximum fragility. The first crack appears not in a palace, but in the weather. Around 1200 BC, something changes in the eastern Mediterranean sky. Climate scientists analyzing pollen cores from the Sea of Galilee and tree rings from Turkish oaks have identified a sharp aridification event, a decades-long drought that begins hitting the Levant, Anatolia and Greece somewhere between 1250 and 1150 BC. Harvests shrink, water tables drop. The surplus that palace economies depend on starts to disappear. In Ugarit, the palace granaries, documented in cuneiform tablets, begin showing deficits. The city that once exported grain now imports it desperately. A letter from the king of Ugarit to the king of Alashia, Cyprus, survives. It reads, "It is a matter of life and death." He is begging for emergency grain shipments. He uses that phrase, life and death. Simultaneously, the Hittite king writes to Egypt. He asks for grain, not as a diplomatic gift, but as emergency aid. Meneptah, the Egyptian pharaoh, actually sends it. A shipment of grain so large, it requires a fleet of vessels. The letter recording this is in Cairo. The crisis it describes is continental. Then the letters start going unanswered. Scholars call this period the end of the palatial era. What they mean is simpler and darker. The scribes stop writing. The archive rooms go silent. In palace after palace, the administrative clay tablets stop at a specific layer. Below that layer, decades of meticulous records. Above it, ash. The droughts weaken the harvests. Weak harvests strain the palace economies. Strained economies fracture the trade networks. Fractured trade networks stop delivering the bronze that armies need, the copper that craftsmen need, the grain that cities need to feed themselves. And into this fracture, something moves. The Egyptians call them the Sea Peoples. In the 8th year of Ramesses III, approximately 1177 BC, they appear on the Egyptian coast in a force so large that Ramesses carves its defeat onto the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. The inscription is still there. You can read it today. He says they came from the islands, that they destroyed everything in their path. Hatti, Azawa, Alashia, Canaan. Who were the Sea Peoples? For over a century, historians assumed they were the cause of the collapse, a tsunami of invaders who shattered civilization from the outside. That was the tidy explanation. Civilization intact. Invaders arrive. Civilization gone. But the archaeology refuses that story. Cline, the archaeologist who has spent his career excavating Megiddo, identifies at least 7 different groups of sea peoples: Peleset, Cheka, Shekelesh, Denian, Weshesh. They do not share a homeland, a language, or a culture. They are not an army, they are refugees, people displaced from their own collapsing homelands, probably the Aegean, possibly Anatolia, possibly Cyprus, swept into motion by the same forces that are dismantling every palace economy in the Mediterranean. Drought, famine, systems failure. Ugarit's final hours arrive not from the sea, but from inside. The last letter ever found at Ugarit is written by the city's governor to the king of Alashia. It was discovered still in the kiln where it was being fired for sending. It was never sent. The governor writes, "The enemy ships are already here. They have set fire to my towns and done very great damage. All my troops are in Hittite territory. My ships are not back yet." Then silence. Then ash. The city of Ugarit burns around 1185 BC. It is never rebuilt. Between approximately 1200 and 1150 BC, within a single human lifetime, the following cities burn, are abandoned, or collapse entirely: Mycenae, Tiryns, Medea, Thebes, Pylos, Troy, Hattusa, Alalach, Ugarit, Megiddo, Lachish, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, and Komi, Kition. This is not a list of minor outposts. These are the capitals of the ancient world. At Pylos, the Mycenaean palace complex in Greece, archaeologists find evidence that the scribes knew. In the Linear B tablets from the palace's final weeks, Pylos is calling in emergency military reserves from coastal stations, repositioning troops toward the shore, offering extra rations to watchers posted on headlands. Someone in the palace administration saw something coming. It was not enough. The palace at Pylos burns in a fire hot enough to bake the clay tablets that document its final hours. Those tablets survive precisely because the palace died, fired by catastrophe into permanent preservation. Hattusa, the Hittite capital, a city of stone walls 6 miles in circumference, the center of an empire that once stood equal to Egypt, is abandoned so completely that when it is finally excavated in the 20th century, archaeologists find no evidence it was looted. It was simply left. The population walked away, into nothing, into the records of no one. The Bronze Age writing systems, Linear A of the Minoans, Linear B of the Mycenaeans, and the administrative cuneiform of the Hittites, all fall silent simultaneously. Knowledge accumulated over centuries, gone. 300 years of darkness follow. No writing, no monumental building, no long-distance trade, no palace economies. Historians call it the Greek Dark Ages. But the darkness touches everyone. A civilization does not collapse because one thing breaks. It collapses because everything is connected. And when the connections break all at once, nothing can hold the pieces. 3,000 years later, we dig. At Ugarit, a farmer's plough strikes stone in 1929. Archaeologists arrive. They find a library, thousands of clay tablets written in a previously unknown script called Ugaritic, a simplified alphabet that may be the ancestor of every alphabet used today, including the one you are reading now. At Pylos, Carl Blegen excavates the palace in 1939 and finds the tablets of the final administration, the last record of a world mid-sentence. At the bottom of the sea off Turkey, divers find the Uluburun ship. The cargo intact, the 9 civilizations it carried still resting on the seafloor 3,300 years after it sank. The Bronze Age collapse did not erase everything. It preserved it. In ash and silt and darkness, the material record of the most interconnected world before our own waited patiently for us. What did they leave behind? They left the alphabet. They left the trade routes that Rome would later inherit. They left agricultural terraces still visible in the Greek hills. They left stories, Troy above all, that survived the darkness in the mouths of poets and emerged 3 centuries later as Homer. And they left a warning that we keep almost understanding. The Bronze Age world was destroyed not by one catastrophe, but by the interaction of many. Climate pressure, migration, disrupted supply chains, political instability, exhausted institutions unable to flex. Each, alone, was survivable. Together, they were not. The Bronze Age did not fall. It was overloaded. We stand in Ugarit today and look at the stones. No roof, no tablets in the kiln, no merchant at the quay, no smell of cedar or salted fish. But the city grid is still there. You can walk the streets. You can put your hand on a wall that a mason laid in 1300 BC and feel the tool marks his chisel left in the stone. He was working on a Tuesday. He had lunch. He went home. This is not a ruin. It is a city frozen mid-sentence. The stylus still in the clay, the bread still in the oven, the letter still in the kiln, waiting to be sent to a king who was already gone. Every week, we go further back. Different empire, different century. Same unanswered question.